So I'm just gonna go over to the street light and see what's happening around there. Okay, so these are the very strong street lights, and none of the other street lights have been put on. Maybe a few by now, but none in this area. And these are like really bright. So I just want to show that there are clusters right on top of them charging up from them. And there are also clusters that are going to form right there on the trees below and close to them. So there's clusters right there on top of the lights. Let me just put that in the frame properly. Okay, so there are clusters right there forming right on top of the lights. You can even see the little orb there on the right hand side spinning like crazy, and it's spinning counterclockwise, and there are many of them spinning. That's a cluster. It just hasn't sparked up yet. But that's what happens when you have strong lights. These things go right to them and charge up from them. And this one over here as well. There's clusters on that too. And millions and billions of orbs just in the air all around the place. All around that light. You can just see them. I'll back up slightly. You can just see a whole lot of them in the air. They're everywhere. So now I'm going to back off. I'm going to go back to the ones. Let's see this one again. What happened with that? That one's very active, but it's just beginning to be active. They get more active than that, and they get much larger than that. But that one's on its way to becoming a large cluster and very active. You can see all the orbs that are around the nucleus there, just spinning around and around, all counterclockwise movement. So that's going to be one big cluster right there in that tree. You can see the difference in the plasma as they change the speeds. And all this is done intelligently. There's no guesswork. The way they move is all figured out even ahead of time before they start doing this. These things are intelligent, and you have to be in order to move so many of them around at that speed and not crash any of them. So this shows a very high degree of intelligence. People wouldn't be able to do this at this speed. Somebody would make a mistake and there would be a crash, and I've never seen a crash between these organisms yet, no matter how fast they revolved around the nucleus or anything else. Okay, so that one is going to grow. Let's see these ones again. All of those are going to get larger. I'm just taking a shot from far away so that you can see the entire thing. I'll just try and move this over so that you can see all of them. And just watch. That whole tree is just orbs. There are no leaves. They can assume any shape and any form, any color, any size. They're very good at turning themselves into anything. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's alive or not alive. They can turn themselves into anything. Okay, so I'm gonna just look for the ones that are over here. See how they're doing. I'll start at the bottom. Too much. Okay. And those are just activating, and they're right on a tree. They're actually on two different trees. One is smaller than the other. The large one there that's glowing bright white is on a different tree than the other ones. The other ones are on top of the smaller tree. I could just see all the organisms in the air. There's so many of them. It's incredible. Look how many are in the air. It just looks like milk. And these things are so small, we breathe them in without even knowing it. I mean, they're a lot smaller than what you see right there in the video. The ones that are so small, I can't even get with the camera. I'd have to get up close and put it on macro. And even then, they can be much smaller than that. For some clusters, you need an electron microscope to see them, but they all do the same operation, no matter what size scale they're at. And they can all glow, no matter how small. And also no matter how big. Whether they're minuscule or gigantic doesn't make any difference. All the clusters do the same procedure. They behave the same and they can do the same things. The energy they produce is just either small when it's a minute cluster or huge when it's a gigantic cluster. So it's all very much dependent on the size, how much energy is produced. But in terms of the size of the cluster and the cluster producing energy for itself, that's all the same mathematics as the large cluster producing energy for itself, because there are more individual clusters in the larger cluster than in a smaller one, depending on how small the small one is and how small they're subdivided. But I only assume that there are more clusters in the larger one. I don't know that for sure, since if these things can subdivide infinitesimally without any end, then they all have the same numbers, both the huge and gigantic clusters and the very minute and minuscule clusters. Then the numbers don't matter, depending on how much they can subdivide themselves and into what kind of pieces. But all the pieces can function independently. Every cluster can do its own thing, no matter how small it is. It can work by itself. So I'm gonna go up and see that one's on top. And just see how many there are. Okay. Let's set this up. Okay. I'm gonna zoom in just enough. Okay, there. Just want to see what that is. Here, that's an organism right there. Okay, you can see that there are organisms right there on the left side. You can see that it's a living thing, and lots of living things, and you can actually see the organisms there all around the white glowing plasma nucleus. That's a good thing to see, because you can see how they shape the nucleus. That's what they're doing. They're shaping the nucleus into the kind they need. By shaping the nucleus, they control the energy output and the direction of the energy output. And they change that configuration constantly. It doesn't stay, once it's set in one spot, it doesn't stay there long. They charge up that area and then they go on and shapeshift it someplace else so that they can charge up another area of the same cluster. Each of these glowing nuclei has its own cluster. And I'll just put over here both of them in the middle, so you can see how they shared their orbs. Okay, so right there between the two of them, if I can get this to stay. Okay, right there between the two clusters, watch them exchange the orbs back and forth. And it's all done like a vortex going counterclockwise. So those two energy sources, the nuclei of each cluster, are exchanging orbs back and forth. As the orbs go back and forth, they get charged up themselves, and then they can go off and make more clusters on their own, because they'll have enough energy to spark up some other orbs someplace else. So these two here are like particle accelerators. They pass particles back and forth until the particles are charged up. And once they're charged up, they leave and more come in to be charged up. And that's why the shape of the nucleus in both clusters will change constantly in order to accommodate all these orbs coming in and charging them. Because the orbs are coming in from all sides. There's no specific area where they come through or have to come through. They can come in from any side, 360 by 360 by 360, and once they enter the energy zone there between the two clusters, they recharge. So any orbs with depleted energy, they come in there and then they recharge, and then they leave and give room to some other orbs to recharge. Okay, so that's how the clusters work. Let me see what else I can show. These ones on the bottom I didn't show. Let's see what's happening with them. Here's one red one here. It's gonna start. I missed it. Okay. It'll start maybe later. I'll just show these for now so I don't waste time. Okay. You can see just how many are all over in the air. There's nothing wrong with this camera. I'm shooting in high definition. But I think I'll put this in 480p because it takes so long to upload high definition, it's not worth it. 480p will show the picture just as good. The important thing is to notice how many there are and what they're doing. As you can see, there are orbs all over on either side of them, and if I go like this, they're on the bottom, like on the top. They're just all over. The air is full of them. These organisms are everywhere. There's just so many of them. Look at this one here in the woods. This one is just forming now. Look at all the orbs that are on there. Lots of them. There's going to be a lot of clusters in that tree. Just look at all that energy. It's amazing to watch. And then they just can vanish like that and gone. It all depends on their activity and what they're doing. And how fast they're doing it. But that's what's happening in our trees. The trees, I don't know if they are trees. All I see is these orbs and pretending to be leaves and branches and stuff. I don't know. It's hard to find a real tree that doesn't do this. This shows you how a cluster is formed and how it changes its nucleus.